22. Can I ask everyone to rise to the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless you.
Thank you.
Could I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Eisenhardt? Here. Mr. Hafner?
Here.
Mr. Hohenschel? Mrs. Hughes? Here. Mr. Reitnauer?
Here.
Mr. Sheets?
Here.
Mr. Stubitz?
Here.
Mrs. Walliser? Here. Mr. Reiger?
Here.
8 present.
All righty, we will move on to recognitions, and I will turn over to you, Mr. Bodiger.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. So on a regular basis, we like to recognize 2 employees that are become essentially like our employees of the month, and we call it our New Heights Award. The concept is staff can be recognized by students, by colleagues, by parents for doing great things and going above and beyond. We take all those names and then put them together, and then we select 2 individuals that we feel are most deserving. And so these are our 2 New Heights Awards this month. And so the first one we'd like to recognize is Mrs. Susan Weaver. Mrs. Weaver, if you don't mind coming up. So, congratulations. So let me just take a moment here. I'm going to read the 2 recognitions that you received. Susan goes the extra mile for our kids. This year has been challenging for all of us, but the mental health of our students has a huge concern. Susan has not only realizes this, but is quick to jump in and always willing to assist when she can. A student today has told me that she considers Mrs. Weaver her school mom, and that she feels that she can talk with her about anything she's struggling with. This goes such a long way with the students and deserves to be recognized. Not only is Susan such an asset to our students academically, but bringing in the social and emotional support piece every day is what sets her apart. And then to see the second one, it has been a pleasure to have Mrs. Weaver join the middle school staff this year and to see her interact with our students on a daily basis. Although I've known of the great things that she's done with Brandywine students over the years, it's great to witness it firsthand. Thank you, Mrs. Weaver, for all you've done for our students across the district. And thanks for bringing your unique high school perspective to the middle school. Congratulations.
If I could just say a couple words on Mrs. Weaver's behalf, I think the 2 things that stuck out the most are the extra mile and support. I know the middle school piece was new this year, but last year Mrs. Weaver gave me advice a lot of times, and when she would say we need to pivot, right, and then we need to be flexible. And I think that through all of the changes over the last couple of years, she was an honest monument to that, of all the changes and the flexibility. And now it's just there to support those kids, always go that extra mile. It's not uncommon in a conversation to always talk about those extra things or that support that we're giving those students, whether it's in German or history, which is still a pretty interesting combination of 2 things to have to teach. So, she's a true benefit to the building and great for our students.
German history, now middle school German.
Correct.
Congratulations, Mrs. Weaver. Next up, we'd like to recognize one of our elementary teachers, Caitlin Eisenhardt. Caitlin is a fantastic first grade teacher. She's creative, enthusiastic, and hardworking. She meets the needs of each and every individual in her class and makes it look easy when I know it is not. Her students are celebrated often and are excited to be in her classroom. I appreciate her positivity and dedication to make each day special for her students. Thank you for all you do to make your classroom a happy and welcoming environment.
So I wrote that nomination, which is funny because I didn't read that before I wrote my additional comments. But what's crazy is Caitlin does what I said there, and I said it to her just at my office the other day. She makes her job look so easy, and knowing as an educator all of the moving parts to meet the needs of every single kid in her class, and to do it seamlessly of having, she works with a small group here, kids are working independently, kids are working collaboratively, not arguing, knowing exactly what they're supposed to do in small groups, and they're first graders, they're 6 years old, and it is a well-oiled machine in there. And somebody this is only her 2nd year at Brandywine. She did teach previously to coming to us, but it does feel like you've been part of the Brandywine family for years, maybe because we had a lot of educational models last year that might have made it seem like it was a year at a time, but she just really jumped in and has been doing incredible things for our students, and definitely a leader in technology. For the elementary staff, she's going for her master's in instructional technology, and just excited to see how far you've come so far here at Brandywine, what you could do for us and the students in years to come. So thank you for all you do. Greatly appreciate it.
So huge congratulations to two stellar teachers on our staff. So I can turn back over to you.
Alrighty, student board representatives, Tatiana.
Last Friday, the high school juggling club held Night of the Arts, where jugglers, jazz band, chamber singers, treble choir, drama club, and 2 soloists performed. Art from both art classes and art club was also displayed in the rotunda as guests walked in. Key Club aided by selling baked goods and drinks. The high school will be holding their Spring Fling Dance on April 1st from 7 to 10 p.m. Prom will be held on May 6th at Shepherd Hills Golf Club from 6 to 10 p.m. Tickets for the prom will be sold March 28th through 30th before school and during lunch. The BH Clothing Circle will be collecting and distributing clothing on Saturday, March 19th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. We are specifically asking for people to donate prom attire. On March 25th, we'll be laying out the prom attire for students to look through after school. Everything is free. The following day, March 26th, we will be distributing the prom attire to the public. Spring softball, baseball, track, boys volleyball, and boys tennis all started their new season today. The Music in Our Schools concert will be held this Saturday, March 12th at the high school. The high school concert choir, chamber singers, treble choir, concert band, and jazz band will be performing along with middle school music groups. The high school's drama club will be performing Radium Girls, a true story about female factory workers who, upon developing a mysterious and fatal illness, fought for justice against 1920s corporate America. This play will be performed on April 8th and 9th from 7 to 9:30 p.m. Tickets are $8 per person.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Megan Miller.
Kindergarten registration is still open for the 2022 to 2023 school year, and we currently have 60 students enrolled in kindergarten for next year. Last week,
62 now, right?
62.
Ooh, 2 more. That's exciting for us.
Last week, our elementary students celebrated Read Across America Week and Dr. Seuss's birthday, and there was fun spirit days, silly activities, and prizes given to celebrate him all week. Last month, we had an awesome turnout for our book bingo and book walk. Students walked around the gym reading If You Give a Mouse a Valentine's Cookie and completing the fun tasks associated with each page. At the same time, students were having a great time playing bingo. Each student left with at least 1 book and the crafts made during the bingo.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Lauren Stout.
Music in Our Schools is coming up on March 12th. Both intermediate and middle school band and chorus rehearsals have begun in preparation for the concert. This Friday, middle school band and chorus are taking a bus to the high school to rehearse in the auditorium. In the intermediate school, 4th grade homerooms received their eggs today for embryology. Homerooms will have weekly lessons provided by 4-H as they incubate and hatch chicks. They are also working on posters to positively discourage the use of tobacco products. Dr. Fabian came and gave presentations to all the homerooms and will choose 1 poster to be the winner per homeroom. Also in the intermediate school, on the 18th, the Neon Lights Glow Dance will be held in the intermediate school gym. Now, in both the intermediate and middle schools, Smiles Dental Clinic will be coming to visit at the end of March. And on the 14th, we have the pie contest. Intermediate and middle school homerooms are competing to see who can make the longest pie chain out of paper and to see who can memorize and recite the most digits of pi. The homerooms with the longest pie chain will receive a pizza party. In the middle school, on March 11th, the Connects Club is going with Mr. Mark on a STEM trip to BCIU for a competition. Also, on March 14th to the 25th, students will be donating to Pennies for Patients, which is a part of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Lastly, next week from the 14th to the 18th is Spirit Week. Monday the 14th, wear yellow to kick off Pennies for Patients fundraiser. The 15th is Tie-Dye Tuesday. Wednesday the 16th, wear your favorite sports teams to represent March Madness. Thursday the 17th, wear green for St. Patrick's Day. And Friday the 18th is a grade level challenge. So 6th grade wears gray, 7th grade wears navy, and 8th grade wears maroon to represent our school colors.
Thank you very much. Right, moving on to public comment. Anyone that would like to address the board? Hearing none. And also any of the new height award recipients that want to check out here, by all means.
Thank you, ladies. Congratulations. Congratulations, Caitlin.
All right, moving on to board of directors report. Can I get a motion and a second?
So move Sheets.
Second,
All right, so first on the agenda is the meeting minutes from the February 7th meeting. Any corrections that need to be made to those meeting minutes?
Mr. Potter, I don't know if there's any correction, but I know that I had discussed certain aspects of the money calling the child, if you will, the Act 85, and I've given a copy of that to Mr. Pratt's assistant that was here last week. I'm just curious if he received that or not, and if he has had a chance to prepare any response.
Yes, I did receive it, and I want to let you know that that law was repealed 2 years after it was enacted, so no longer exists.
It is repealed?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I just needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hefner. Okay, then we'll move on to policies. There's a second reading policies that are on the agenda this evening. And then on item C, we have first reading policies, and I'll turn that over to Ms. Oberko, because a lot of these are more financially based, and she spent a lot of time investing in reviewing these policies. So, Ms. Oberko?
Yes, we'll go over the first policy. Policy 621 is the local taxpayer bill of rights. There was one notable revision in here, and that includes a disclaimer that this policy is applicable to only taxes that the district does not outsource. An example would be EIT. So obviously that's kind of outside our jurisdiction, but that was really the only revision there. Policy 622 and 623 and 626.1. There are no changes to those policies. That's just part of the cyclical review. Policy 626, federal fiscal compliance. Revisions essentially, that's bringing it up to date with some PSBA recommendations, essentially saying that, federal employees are held to the same standards in regards to abiding by local policies, federal law, as our locally funded employees. And then policy 808, if you recall, if you were here back in December, we had approved this policy already this year. We had undergone a summer audit, food service audit, and then just so happened we were up for our annual in school session food service audit, and they did kind of note that we have to take out the part in the board policy that says that we can no longer provide an alternate meal to a student that carries debt. So that's why this policy is up again for review. We're simply pulling that out of the policy.
Any questions on policies, second reading or first reading? Okay. Then I'm going to turn on over to the projector here for a second. There you go. There it is. All right. What I want to do this evening, once this finally loads, is just go through some data points. We talked about the data points last meeting. I wanted to spend a few minutes this evening, very similar slide deck with a couple recommendations at the end from the school district perspective about where we are headed with our health and safety plan. Couldn't connect. That's not good.
Maybe a flip chart or something for easel.
Paper, old school.
Overhead projector, I don't remember those having trouble loading.
There is a whiteboard.
There is.
I could. On the whiteboard behind me. Going, thinking. Could not connect. So gives me an opportunity just to share with the board momentarily that I think people may or may not know that we one of our neighboring school districts had some issues with a cyber attack in their school district with ransomware, and their whole system was basically shut down. So it's something that Mr. Volker, the technology team, particularly also working with the business office at Verco, have really been on top of from the technology side. One of the things that we have going for us is a lot of our files are off-site. So when we use Google as a backup, we also have Amazon as a server storage. So we don't have a lot of files internally on the server. So that actually is really helpful in terms of cybersecurity. The other piece that we have, in case something would ever happen, and that's where I speak a little bit with Ms. Albuerco, is we do have an insurance policy put in a few years back when this started to become an issue, and has been increased. So last year we increased it. I believe the coverage is now $1 million, if I'm not mistaken, for these sort of attacks that would ever happen. So when these happen, unfortunately, you're caught in a situation of how much can you rebuild, or you have to pay the actual ransomware or the ransom to get your files accessible again. But again, the benefit of where Mr. Volker has led the technology department and all our technology within the school district, most of that's off-site. We don't have internal servers, and we moved away from that about 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah, I'd say about 5 years ago we started that transition, and in about another 2 years we're going to be in a really fantastic place. Admittedly, we're already leading the county with some of our security efforts, and as soon as we finalize, it's not fun, but multi-factor authentication, we'll probably end up being the first in Berks County to be fully compliant with multi-factor authentication, which is giving us the best security we really can have within reason. There's always more you can do, right? You're never totally safe, but we believe we're in a very good place, especially relative to others.
So that's a little side note for conversation. All right, so here are our data. So what I'd like to go through this evening is, this is the data dashboard. This is what the data we've been tracking on our website. I'm going to take you through 3 different scenarios: where we are at the local level, where we are at the county level, and where we are at the state/national level. And just to help kind of frame up the conversation and lead us to the end recommendation here of Oregon School District. So you can see the COVID cases here. The blue is the COVID cases, so 12, 12, 3, and 1. And the bar graph here is the weeks of February 4th, February 11th, February 18th, and February 25th. So what you're looking at here is the month of February. The red is the close contacts. And again, you can see that there is a really sharp decline from 98 down to 0 close contacts last week. Similarly, when we look at number of cases that we had in the school district, last board meeting when we were together, we talked about the number of actual COVID-19 cases. We had 22 in the last 14 days at that point. Right now we have 1. And in fact, that 14 was as of Friday. So we're actually at 0 cases now in the last 14 days. So that's the actual cases. When we start switching and talking a little bit more about the quarantines, look at how these numbers drop off. So in January, the month of January, we were at 493 quarantines. In February, we dropped down to 80. So a tremendous drop off in terms of the number of quarantines that happened. And the reason I use January is because we talked about the February board meeting. And the reason I use February, obviously, is because we're at March board meeting, so that's the data we can talk to. But within 1 month, you can see that sharp drop off of what's happening with the COVID-19 cases and then subsequent quarantines. We also implemented testing. We started the COVID-19 testing back in November, and then we put in last month the test to stay program. And so similar, the same weeks that are targeted here. And you can see here that same kind of trend line of, so this is students and staff, and then yellow is positive and green is negative. But as we get over last week, we did 2 tests and both were negative. When we look at the data that was reviewed, there was 103 total tests administered the month of January, essentially. And then the month of February, there was 18 tests. So again, following all these signs are starting to follow a parallel between number of cases in the district, number of quarantines, ballooning down to 80, and then subsequently the number of tests that were administered down there. So here's what's happening at the county level, and it's very similar. I think we all know this, right? But just some data points to be able to put to this. So currently, as of Friday, Berks County is 6th lowest county in the state. Lehigh County is 2nd lowest in the state in terms of percent positivity, the number of cases per 100,000. Look at where we were back in January, though, compared to where we are right now as of Friday. I mean, that is a tremendous drop off of 1,069 per 100,000 down to 35.9 per 100,000. It just, again, that whole trend line is exactly what we're seeing locally here within the school district walls. That's reflected at the county level. This graph, just for illustration purposes, is the all-time COVID cases within Pennsylvania. So you start back here in April 2020, we had that spike. This is December, and then you had the spike this past December. But just look at the difference between last December and this December and the difference. It really spiked up. But again, we're having that sharp drop off right now. And then this is the current hospitalization rate and what happened the last 90 days. And as we all know, kind of it did this spike. Hospitalizations rates went up and now are coming down sharply as we head into March. And then the national trend, very similar. This is the same trend line that you saw with Pennsylvania for the all-time. So this is what happened nationally all-time, and then this is the last 90 days and what's happening. So again, when you talk about the local, the county, the state, the national, we're seeing the same type of trend line, and then what's happening with that short drop-off. So this is the supports that are in place. We have the Test to Stay program, which we implemented in February. We had a contact tracer that was that we had contracted with from a separate company. They were coming in to help do the contact tracing. That went from February 2nd to February 25th. And then we ended it at the end of February just because our number of close contacts was going down so sharply. There really wasn't a need for that service anymore. We do have a contracted nurse position, and that's to support the nursing staff. We do have an absence in the nursing staff, and then also just that additional demand on positions right now still warrants that. We are still looking to do a vaccination clinic. We did a survey out to the community. There was interest in that, and so we're looking to do that in March. I think everyone knows that in the end of February 28th, the CDC lifted the mask mandate for school transportation. So at this point, I think everyone knows January, we have masks optional for the students within the school building, but this still remained in effect. That has now been lifted, and so that is now mask mandate everywhere, or mask optional everywhere. So the data points, just to kind of do a high-level summary here, going from COVID cases in January to now 32 to 1, 97% decline. Since last meeting, 12 cases that week down to 1. We only had 1 case last week, and then, last week, and then we're at 0 right now. And then quarantines drastically reduced within the last month, so we went from that 493 down to 80. So all this data is telling us what I think we all realize, which is the COVID-19 surge that happened throughout the winter is drastically falling off. We all anticipated that happening. It mirrors what happened last year, but you never quite know until you get through it. So I think it's really important to use this data. We make decisions based on data, not just necessarily gut reactions or emotions. And so to use this data and help us make some recommendations, this evening we're recommending we continue with that mask optional. That was the decision at the January meeting. We did remove that contact tracer. The big change in what we're recommending this evening is that we remove contact tracing in general, so that if there would be a close contact, we would no longer be doing quarantines associated with a positive COVID-19 case. Most districts are starting to move that direction, and based off the data with 1 case, it really doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to continue that anymore. Continue the testing option. We're going to continue doing that. I think it's still a good, viable offering we can support our community with. And then finally, we'd look to move away from the website tracking. Right now, there's that dashboard on the website, and the community messages if there is a COVID-19 case. We stop doing that just because we're kind of at the tail end of the pandemic. So those are the recommendations this evening. That is what's in the health and safety plan. So when you look at your item D, and the updated health and safety plan and those, adjustments based from the January 10th meeting when you last approved it, these two things are really the main, pieces that is the shift. Any questions on this data before we turn this off? Yes.
Mr. Parker, I have a couple of questions around, when you say remove contact tracing, what's in the definition of contact tracing? Obviously, a piece of it is the communication to people who were exposed.
Yep.
Is quarantining part of that, or are they bifurcated?
I'm glad you said that. So if someone still is positive, they still would have to do the five days of quarantine if they were a positive case. But if they were a close contact to that person, we would no longer be tracking who close contacts are to that positive case.
Okay, so I guess that's one of my real questions. I have no concerns about minimizing or eliminating the quarantine, the forced quarantine, because that's consistent with everything that's coming down from, the medical professionals. In terms of contact tracing, which in my mind is letting people who may have been exposed to you know that you are positive.
Right.
And empowering them to do with that information whatever they choose. They can do nothing, they can go test, they can quarantine, they can do whatever they want. But notifying them that they've been exposed, to me, would still be appropriate. I don't know if that's consistent, for example, with what we would do if I had chickenpox. Would you let my colleagues or my fellow students know that they might have been exposed to a highly contagious, serious disease? So maybe you can address that a little bit.
Yeah, so in terms of the parallel, if it was chickenpox, we would most likely send a message out to the class in that case. In this case, because it's isolated cases, the thought process here is to remove the contact tracing, target that one individual that's sick, isolate them, and really not do any more of the conversations or phone calls that would be associated with going through, looking at all the class, looking at all the class seats, identifying all those individuals, calling all those families. At this point, because of the minimal impact to COVID-19, we're recommending at this point that we cease that entire contact tracing communication.
Okay. Yeah, I just, I don't understand why we would eliminate that as like, almost like a professional courtesy, like a personal courtesy to the people that are near you that might be exposed. Again, empowering them to do with that information whatever they choose, but just, hey, sort of like a courtesy heads up, someone you were near, meeting the criteria of how many minutes and how long the exposure and all that kind of stuff, just a heads up, you've been exposed. Period, end of our involvement. But to me, I feel like we're remiss to not alert people that they've been exposed to a highly contagious disease.
And I think you had said though before that a lot of the kids that we were sending home or staying close contact, they ended up not testing positive anyway. It was such a small number. And yes, sure, it would be nice, but you know what the burden has been on our administration and our teachers and our nurses to do this contact tracing.
Right,
It is monumental.
But it's not anymore. It would not be monumental
It would still
anymore.
be the same demand.
It would. And
But the number of COVID cases is so minimal now that would make the amount of contact tracing extremely minimal as well.
because it's how many kids are in a room together that could possibly be exposed. You got to call 30 of those people. That's not gonna change, even if it's one, they're still calling all 30.
It's determining who is close contact, sitting through the list, finding out were they together for that amount of time. It's all time consuming.
Understood, and it's all about trying to keep people safe and giving them the opportunity to keep themselves safe.
I think their opportunity is they can wear a mask. That's their opportunity. I mean, Walmart's not calling you if you were exposed. If you were at a restaurant, they're not calling you and telling you.
Right,
I
but-
mean, we've
but
moved past that. Our
Students have
community
a
has moved
choice
past that.
to go to Walmart, they don't have a choice to
But
go
they have
to
a choice to
public
protect
school.
themselves, or they have a choice to go to virtual.
Right, but even if they wore a mask, it's still like a courtesy to me to say, let them know. So, and again, the reason why.
Should we do that to the stomach bug too? Should I have called them and said, hey, my kid was puking last night, I wanna wipe down the whole school?
No, we're not saying wipe down the whole school, just to those parents, hey, you might want to be aware that your child's been exposed to a really kind of yucky thing. Do with that information what you want. And the reason why I'm suggesting it is because our cases are so low. So if, for example, they stay at 0, having contact tracing in the plan means no additional work at all. But if a case would flare up in a small classroom environment, yes, that means we'd have to make 15 or 20 phone calls. To me, that is well worth the investment of time. I don't think we would need incremental district resources to do that. We didn't need that, months ago, to handle very low volume like that. I would just encourage folks to consider that. And likewise, what's the harm in maintaining the website? Posting 0.
It's not necessary.
Would it be okay if I finish my comment
I mean,
and then
nobody's
allow you
looking at
to rebut it? What I'd like to suggest is that there's not a lot of harm or work involved.
Yes,
And
there is.
Mrs. Wells, would it be okay if I finish my comment
Well, I
before
think
you
you're speaking
interrupt
on
me?
behalf of people that, you don't know how much is involved in that, and you're saying it's not that much work. How do you know? You're not doing it.
If we have the administrators here, they can certainly speak to it, but out of professional courtesy, I would like to respectfully ask that I could finish my comment, and then you can have at it. But it's not really productive to continue to interrupt folks. What I was trying to say was, what is, Mr. Pottinger, the investment in time and energy on a weekly basis to post 2 pieces of data to that website and to leave it live? For another, for example, month. So 4 more weeks or 5 more weeks until March. And if we continue to see that same trend line, then clearly there's a pattern. Right now, there's the beginning of what we all hope to be a pattern. I would just like to suggest that we possibly consider 1 additional month of posting that data and continuing to make those phone calls if there's, any cases, which again, we anticipate to be marginal.
So the reason we're recommending to drop this website tracking, because we consider that, keep it going for a little bit. The community messages, I've received several comments from individuals saying, can we stop those messages, those emails now? A little bit different from the website tracking. The reason we are asking to end that as well is Ms. Bruner takes the mass Excel sheet, goes through that data point, pulls out the pieces that are close contacts, pulls out the positive cases, and then pulls out the elements that would be close contacts, positive cases, and quarantines. And then we put that up on the website. It's not a huge burden, but it takes time every week, and it's something that when we look at what is actually happening in the website data, there's 50 people last month that looked at. So there's not a lot of people that are looking at that site anymore. I think the number exactly was 52.
So the entire month.
For the month, yeah.
Okay, that's
So-
powerful.
40 of them are probably me, because I look at it.
So there's not a lot of hits that are happening anymore, and
That's powerful.
that's why we pulled that analytics to see what was happening. That's why we recommend that.
May I ask a follow-up? You said you received feedback from the community asking the emails to stop and the website
Yeah.
tracking to stop. Did the folks who requested that provide rationale? Like,
Yeah, they
what's
thought
the
that,
reason?
they said that, as we started coming out of the pandemic, and COVID-19, their thought process was, as we start to come out of that it's sending this message of, oh, it's still there. And this is heavy, we just move past this instead of being a positive, proactive communication tool. They're now seeing it as a negative. Can you stop hitting us in the face with it?
And it wasn't the website, it was
It
was just the email,
Just
not
the
the, not the website portion, it was just the daily emails.
Yeah, right.
Any other comments?
I just comment on the actual plan that's up here. It says, I know that we are optional for face coverings, but it says face coverings will still be required on school buses while the CDC orders in place. If we just change it to say, per the CDC, it's optional, so that if somebody looks at it quickly, they don't know the CDC plan.
So we put this together before that CDC had, because the agenda went out.
Okay.
So I can make that adjustment before this.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Nice job with the information. Moving on to committee reports. BCIU, Mrs. Hume.
Good evening, everybody. The BCIU board met on February 17th. I documented some information in the write-up. There's only a couple of things I'd like to call your attention to. I also sent an email just this evening, so chances are none of you have seen it yet, and that's fine. I enclosed 4 documents. One of them was the summary of the governor's proposed 2022-2023 budget, which reflects a 14% increase for public education. That's a $2 billion increase. Again, as Nicole had indicated multiple times in our budget meetings, that doesn't mean all that money is going to flow through the education system, because there's a lot of layers of budget approval that have to occur. But certainly a good news first attempt as it relates to public education. The second thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is a couple of documents that the BCIU has created. There was some commentary, I don't know if it was at our last board meeting or at the budget meetings, about mandates. And can't we just stop following the government's mandates because we don't like them? And so we had some discussion about that notion. And so I thought it was pertinent to share the document that the BCIU has put together. Mr. Pottinger and all of his peers around the county have a copy of it and likely are sharing it with their board. So the mandates document is really powerful. I encourage you to at least take a look at it. It's 80 pages long. And if you don't read a word, just the fact that it's 80 pages long, that will give you a very powerful sense of how cumbersome it is for public school districts in Pennsylvania to have to navigate, and why our budget money has to go towards these mandates. What they did a really nice job of, though, at the BCIU is calling out key action items for districts, and they put those in a 12-page document called the mandates checklist. And it's itemized by function or department in the school, and so it really becomes, I think, Mr. Potter, a helpful tool for you and your team to make sure that we're following all of those mandates appropriately. So I draw your attention to that. And then finally, the 4th document in there, and this might be a good segue to Mrs. Walliser's update from the COLA Committee of Legislative Action, is there's a 2-page, front and back, so basically 1-pager front and back, that details all of the legislative leaders. So the names of the senators and the House of Representatives and which committees they're on as it relates to all of that legislation. So again, if you're interested in that regard, a very helpful tool for folks. One final thing, the BCIU, I think you've heard me speak previously, so intermediate units are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and the Berks County IU is doing a big press event coming up on April 21st at 5 o'clock. So certainly it's open to all of us, but, should you choose not to attend, that would be fine. There'll be some kind of press about the event. So it'll be a neat opportunity for, again, public education in the county of Berks to get some fanfare.
Perfect, thank you
That's
very
my
much.
report, thank you.
All right, BCTC, Mr. Sheets.
BCTC meeting was held on February 23rd at the West Campus in Eastport. BOC briefs are attached. I would just like to call out a couple of things real quick, and if the board would just humor me. I would like to call out some students of the quarter. We actually had 3 students of the quarter at East Campus. We had Benjamin Smith, Eva McDonald, and Samuel Berryman. I would also like to kind of belatedly give a preface of, I apologize if I butchered anyone's name. I'm not that smart. We also had at the West Campus, Noel Iris, Dylan Rivera, Chase Hartline, and Ryland Grepper were all recognized as students of the quarter as well. I would also like to recognize Samuel Berryman, who actually came in first place for the masonry competition at the Skills USA competition that was held at the BCTC. Skills USA is an opportunity for the students to demonstrate the real world skills and application of those skills that they learned during their program at BCTC. So Samuel did a fantastic job, so I'd also like to recognize him as well. One final thing just to make note of, just in case anybody's listening that has interest in this, or anyone has a child that would be interested in this, BCTC is holding a career camp this summer. It will be from June 13th to the 17th at the East Campus, which is in Foley. It's open to current 7th and 8th grade students, much to the chagrin of my son who wanted to go, but is a current 6th grade student.
No,
So
it is 6th and 7th.
it's 7th and 8th.
No, I just signed Jeff up. If you look
You
on the
sure?
thing. yeah.
Because it's in
If you
the,
look at it, it says, the choice says 7th grade, 22, 23.
okay, well then I was,
I
I
just
guess I
signed
can
Jack
sign,
up
I
today.
guess I can sign, Colin up as well, because that was a question I had asked, and they said it was a current 7th and 8th grade.
They're telling everybody in school, which I don't see Mr. Farina, but, oh, no, there he is. I think that they announced it as 6th going into 7th, right? Yeah, they're saying 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in
Okay.
school. So he came home and bugged me, and then when you look online to fill it out, it says, what grade are they in? And it's, when you drop down 7th, it says 22, 23.
Okay, right on. Well, then I guess Colin's gonna be going to the thing. Now, unfortunately, there were 2 tracks available. 1 track is already filled, right? So you had the track 1, which everybody wanted to do. Create cornhole boards and carpentry, cabinetry, and painting and decorating. All spots are filled, right? So there's going to be some amazing cornhole boards coming out, June 17th, 18th. Track 2, though, is explore a different program every day during camp, and some of those programs are, dental assistants. I believe there's a carpentry program that you do as well. There's a couple of different, I want to say there's like 5 different tracks that you're able to do. This is part of an expanded outreach that the marketing department over at BCTC is trying to do. BCTC is one of our, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the words, but I mean, it's kind of like a hidden gem, right? Something that not a lot of people understand or realize. Our BCTC is actually one of the best career and technical centers on the East Coast, if not the best career and technical center on the East Coast. Just state-of-the-art everything. So it really positions our children to be extremely successful, in their trade future. So, like I said, that's all I got. Thank you for hearing me. I really appreciate it. Our next meeting will be held in April. I'm sorry, I don't have the date, but it will be held at the East Campus. That concludes my report. However, I can move right on to the negotiation conversation if you love.
That sounds amazing.
Negotiation conversation. We are going to be having meetings here on March 21st and March 30th. There was some conflict with some of the members of who could be where. So we're basically just going to hold 2 meetings, kind of duplicate resources. The 21st will be an afternoon meeting. The 30th will be an evening meeting. So that way, people that are able to attend can attend. And once again, we'll be kind of going in, deep diving into some data and, taking a look at some current pay structures and possibility for maybe, a market adjustment for some of those positions. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Blerico, Berks earned income tax.
Yeah, so I have nothing to report. The next meeting is Thursday, March 31st.
Very good, thank you. Cola, Mrs. Walliser.
So I attended virtually and I was listening in an airport, so I'm gonna let Mr. Pottinger give an overview, so,
Yep, no problem. So, PASBO, which is the School Business Officials Organization, presented, and they did a really nice job going through the meeting was slated to run right after the governor's budget release. And so they did a really nice job of going through the budget. This is, you just did a nice overview of the $2 billion, and that I received some information today. There already is a lot of, for lack of a better word, bickering that's starting to happen as the appropriations meetings start happening within the Senate and the House. So that's really the next step. The Senate and the House start having these budget / they call them appropriations meetings, where they start picking apart the governor's budget, and then they'll start developing their own and exchange back and forth until there's some kind of common ground between the House and the Senate. So that's where we are right now. The COLA meeting was very well attended, and again, PASBO did a really nice job giving a high level overview of where those dollars are coming and where they'd be going if we would see that come to fruition.
Policy Committee, Mrs. Walliser. Thank you very much. Strategic Planning Goals, Mrs. Eisenman.
Nothing to report.
Moving right along here. Building Construction Committee, Mr. Pottinger, I will turn that to you.
Yep, so there's some information linked in your committee report. We have two pieces, the tail end of this project, and KCBA is still working, who's our architect firm, is still working with the contractor to pull a lot of the punch list items together. They're getting done just at a slower pace, but they are still making progress. In fact, they were doing some tile work today. On the flip side, we are looking to start our next phase, and so that's the ESCO/GIZA project, and we partner with the Brewer Garrett company. There is bi-weekly meetings that are occurring, so the Building Construction Committee has been apprised of that and then has that opportunity. They're not mandatory, but at least gives us check-ins of what's happening, what happened in the last 2 weeks, what's happening right now, and then where are we headed with the plans for the upcoming 2 weeks. Company's been very efficient with their time, with their resources so far. I've been really impressed. So that's where we are with that. Two other updates, if I can, just for a second. The other one I'd like to just speak to is just to provide the board a little bit of an update. The district is in negotiation, is in the process of some land pursuits over at the high school. The district attended the Long Sauk Township Planning Commission meeting for a subdivision application. That application process was done with some minor edits from their engineer. The hope was that the Long Sauk Township Planning Commission would push that up to their board with the minor edits and revisions that would be coming, but they would like to see a final version of that plan before the Planning Commission signed off on it. So we will be going back next month to the Planning Commission meeting in April, giving them a final set of plans with their remarks on it, and then having that go to their board of supervisors for consideration. The Planning Commission was very supportive. They understood the reason and the rationale, and again, we're very supportive of the school district through that process. That's what I have an update there. And finally, I'll turn it over to Ms. Noguerico. At our last budget meeting, we talked about transportation and the possibility of evaluating transportation within and communal stops within the town of the borough of Topton. So we did do that survey, and Ms. Noguerico is really taking the lead on this, working with the transportation department.
Yeah, so we had sent out the survey early last week with a deadline of Friday, kind of let it go through the weekend, and there was one respondent. But as of this morning, we had 18 respondents. Well, I should say 18 students. Some are within the same family. So we will be able to offer the communal bus stop to those 18 respondents. I have the data in front of me. I just have to kind of finalize, put these the Brandywine transportation. But if everyone's in favor, we can start that Monday. So basically, I'll send out an email, a school messenger of what bus will pick up and drop off where. Basically, there's 4 stops for the high school, middle school, and 3 stops for the intermediate elementary school. So it'll impact us about 18 kids at this point. So.
At this point, there should be no impact to in terms of
incremental costs because we have enough room within our existing buses to be able to pick up at these 4 communal or 3 communal spots within the borough, and the buses are going, for the most part, naturally flowing by those locations.
Any additional discussions, questions, comments?
Just a quick comment on the, or correction, possibly on the building report. The first bullet says a kickoff meeting was held on April 15th, which probably should have been February 15th or something.
Yep, it should have been right.
Okay, yeah, just catch that for the minutes or whatever.
Thank you.
Good catch.
I got a question and a comment.
Yes, sir.
Comment, I want to thank Nicole and Mr. Pottinger for working with the bus situation and the bus for Topton. I greatly appreciate it. I live in Topton and it can be stressful sometimes, so I greatly appreciate that. Thank you. My question for you is we're supposed to have 4 crossing guards. Did we address that?
So yes, we've been working on that. Unfortunately, the leads that we had, I think collectively as a board had talked about, there were some different private firms that were discussed. As of today, none of those private firms are able to do that service either. So we talked about Flagler Force, we talked about law enforcement, and then we talked about carry security. None of those firms are able to do that either. So at this point, we are not too much further, to be honest.
Continue the search.
Continue the search.
Ready, could I get to?
For the one gentleman that did.
Yes, Randy does a heck of a job. Can we go roll call, please?
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
would you pull out item D for a separate vote, please?
Sure can. So, roll call on everything except for item D.
Yes.
Yes,
Sheets, would you like to amend your motion, please?
Yes, I would like to amend my motion.
Always agreeable, thank you.
To whatever that motion is.
The motion would be to approve A
Yes.
through C and remove D from.
And D is voted on.
Well done,
She stands alone. Right up.
All right, so we are, roll call on everything except for item D.
Mrs. Eisenhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschuld?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitnauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
All right. Now I need a motion and a second to vote on item D.
So moved. Sheets.
Second.
I get a roll call on the health and safety plan, item D.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschuld?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
No.
Mr. Reitnauer?
No.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Walliser?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Wagman?
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 nays, motion passes.
All right, moving on to business and operations report. Can I get a motion in a second?
So moved. Sheets.
Second.
Other people can do this.
We're doing so well, though.
Yeah. Like I don't use my identity, like someone else can definitely get out there.
Right now, got in there though.
Yeah.
We used to not be able to, so.
I try to give a pause.
All right, so items A through, C, is to approve bills through March 7th. Item A is the general fund bills through March 7th totaling $3,400,181.02. Item B is to approve food service bills totaling $27,488.30. Item C is to approve the construction bills totaling $724,701.02. Item E is the capital reserve account, and there was no activity during this time period. Item E, we're going to kind of touch on a couple of these, but is to approve the revenue and expenditure reports and the investment schedule. We're going to jump down to, let's see, the investment schedule. There is a typo for the capital capital reserve account. It should be 3,007,387. It should match the capital reserve revenue expenditure and balance. I did check that. Thank you, Mr. Hefner, for bringing that to my attention. And then also on the student activity and trust fund report, I just want to thank Mr. Stubitz for emailing me with some questions over the weekend. If you want to take a look at that. It is correct in that we have, I guess you would call it a deficit of interest versus bank fees. We have paid a deficit of $255.53 this year. That is with Fulton Bank. I would say Andrew and I have met with Fulton Bank, primarily in regards to the bond issue, but this has also been a primary concern of ours as far as student activity accounts paying fees. We've had some inquiries and discussions about the fees that the district is paying as a whole, but it's definitely a pain point with school-sponsored student activity accounts. So that was actually supposed to be resolved. Then we got February bank statements, and we saw that we paid we paid about $60 last month on here. This is through January, we paid $72. So basically, this is bringing up, a bigger question of we should probably start talking to other financial institutions, see what services they offered. We've already kind of made connections with 2 banks. Obviously, we'll expand our discussions and kind of what banks we want to kind of talk to, see if we can save some fees and what they have to offer for our school district. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times most banks are accommodating, they're willing to waive fees, and our fees just seem to keep climbing. So I just wanted to point that out.
May I ask a quick follow-up question? Have they said no, they won't? They've rejected the request, or they just haven't acted on it?
They said they were going to fix that account. They rejected our request to even modify the fees that we pay with our other accounts. So that was kind of disheartening, I guess you could say, because we basically have in front of me to pay every time we pay a check, we pay a fee. We pay 22 cents for every check that goes out the store. We pay ACH fees. We pay account maintenance fees every time we make a deposit, and the fees just kind of keep building. We pay fees on our, balances that we hold, which, I know they're not making interest, but neither are we. And I guess that's how they're making money on their end. So I just think it's time to, kind of see what else is out there. So.
Absolutely, yeah. For whatever it's worth, I'd encourage you, having worked in financial institutions, sometimes it's the person that you're talking to, so I don't know what level in the organization you're at, but I would encourage you to escalate and go above that person and perhaps above that person.
Or as vice president of the bank.
That's a very low level in a bank.
Okay, seems like a big name to me.
Yeah,
They
it's
brought the
not,
big guns.
and that's I shouldn't say it's a very low level, but it's not nearly the level that you think you're at. So you need to be SVP or EVP level at least. For a regional head, the VP level is like a middle manager in a bank.
Yes, I think we talked to the regional guy at our last meeting. We started at the local was in charge of the governmental accounts. That was a lady, and then we had gone above her to her supervisor, and now we're up to, I guess you call it tier 3.
Yeah, so a regional head for Berks County and the surrounding counties, or even like southeastern PA. Yeah. And if you threaten to pull relationships, if you're talking to the right person, you should. I'd be much more surprised if you continue to get ignored.
I think the nice part is that, we have that relationship, but there's also a lot of other banking institutions that are very eager to be working with us in our initial conversations. So
Yeah, which is great.
it's frustrating when you go through that process, have those conversations, and then our students are still getting charged activity stage.
Yeah, it's a pain to switch banks, and it's costly, frankly. So, in terms of the documentation and the signing and all that stuff, so I'm not encouraging you to pursue that. I'm just saying, in the meantime, it could be months until you have a new banking relationship established. In the meantime, there's no reason why this organization should be paying fees on student accounts or on multi-million-dollar balances. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, so that's definitely something on the radar, and that we've kind of been pushing up, so.
Yeah, good work.
We'll keep you guys in the loop on that. So then we'll go to item G, curriculum technology. Point number 1 is to approve the MOU with Kutztown University. This is something that we do yearly. It was also in the curriculum instruction budget for 2 intern reading specialists at a cost of the district of $2,500 per student. And then item 2 is to approve an agreement with Chris Reed, between Chris Reed and the Brandywine Heights Area School District to allow the transfer of ownership of copyrighted works for the programming technologies and capstone experience. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to turn it over to Tom, so you can provide a more in-depth.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Let me make sure you guys can see me real quick. Sorry, I'm gonna put my back to you. Just real quick, wanted to take a second, and Mr. Pratt, by all means, feel free to interject if I start taking this down the wrong path. I have my notes here, so hopefully I will say the right things. So traditionally, when you think about copyright for original works belonging to the person that did the work, that's traditionally the way that it works. However, it's a little bit different when that work is created by an employee on behalf of an employer. So thinking about a good example of this, think about the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. That work would actually belong to the Vatican, not to Michelangelo. So taking that example and applying it to schools today, as teachers create digital content, that work is not technically owned by the teacher. It's owned by Brandywine Heights Area School District, the employer. And that's known as works for hire. Of course, like all things school law, it does become more complicated than that from the 30,000-foot view, though that's the premise that we're working with. So ownership of the copyrighted work really can only be transferred if there's a written agreement. So the reason that there is an agenda item on the board agenda today is because Mr. Reed came to myself and said, hey, we're creating some really great content for this capstone course as the computer science pathway at the high school. I don't know what I want to do with this yet, but I'd like the ability to still retain ownership of this. I don't want the school to have to pay for anything related to the materials I'm creating, but not knowing what I'd like to do as I'm building it, it's a good opportunity to ask for this. And I said, you know what, Mr. Reed, it actually is a good thing to bring up. So we reached out to Mr. Pratt, our solicitor, and we talked about it. And as an administrative team, this is something that we are willing to support. So again, in the agreement that you have in the agenda in front of you, it states pretty clearly that the district will not have to pay Mr. Reed for any of the content that he has created for this course, but essentially he would retain ownership if in the future he may want to, partner with another school district and maybe even monetize some of the stuff that he's developed. The curriculum will still be owned by the district. We're talking about the materials he's creating for the course. Questions?
So basically, he's a Grateful Dead holding on to his catalog.
Yes. Could use that analogy.
He could have. It was a little bit more current event than the Dabble.
Hey, listen, I went classic.
Could age yourself there on that one.
Okay.
So, Mr. Volker, is
Yes.
the body of work static or dynamic? So is this agreement based on what exists today, or as the curriculum is enhanced in the future and sort of appended to what exists today, does the agreement
Cover any changes made for the work he does for this course? So it is a dynamic, not a static agreement.
Okay. And then my second question is for you, Mr. Pratt. Just can you share with us, from your vantage point, are we like leading or bleeding edge on this, or are other schools, have you been able to help other schools navigate similar situations? Can you share sort of what your perspective and observation about the field is?
Yes, we have helped other school districts with the same requests, and we're able to provide the same type of guidance to Mr. Volker and his disagreements. Is it new? It's new in the sense that we like the fact that we have our professional staff that are out there being creative, but when it comes to other situations, we've had these types of agreements with other school districts.
Okay. And in your experience, the ones you've been a party to those school boards have approved these.
Oh, yes.
So it's a trend. Sounds like.
Could be, yeah. I don't know what defines a trend. but
Yeah.
It could be.
It happens.
Yes, it
It'd be
happens.
approval tonight that starts the trend.
Just start a trend.
So,
Now, it's not gonna be Grateful Dead music, but it'll,
Almost.
If you'd like, I could have.
what it
made
does is it,
I could have made a reference to, in 10 years, if he re-records the same album, does he then get ownership rights?
that's your friend
A la
Taylor.
Taylor
That's-
Swift,
oh,
like,
that's
I
your
mean,
friend
I can
Taylor
go
from
newer.
downstream.
I can go newer.
No, what it does is it encourages staff to continue the creativity, knowing that they're able to work with the district and provide the district with the benefits of that, but also give them the opportunity to take their talents elsewhere, if need be. with the career.
Take their talents elsewhere while still staying.
Yes.
employed.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so
They're not going to South Beach, no.
Right, so my final comment is just to laud Mr. Reed for his efforts in this regard. A couple of years ago, I think he and others, perhaps, I don't know where the idea, what the genesis was, but he offered to be our computer science guru, where Brandywine did not have that previously. And I think you took a sabbatical and worked on this, and for the last couple of years, it's really been a very favorable addition to our public school offering. So I want to personally thank you for your efforts in that regard.
Mr. Reed, you went to Johns Hopkins for that, right?
Yeah.
At what point are we now, let's say, if we approve this tonight with a copyright agreement, and if it's dynamic in the future, that copyright would have to be redone, wouldn't it? It's no longer the same product.
It only deals with this one product that we're dealing with. If he comes up with something different, it's still your product at that point in time, unless you want to do another agreement with him.
So we would have to establish a point in time tonight, wherever that is tonight, and we approve that tonight. Tomorrow,
The way the agreement's drawn up, it's talking about materials for this course. So this agreement would cover.
completed or incomplete at this point?
At this point, I would say it's incomplete because it is going to be dynamic and changing.
Well, we're voting on something tonight that next week won't be the same.
But I think
Correct,
generally,
but because it's still with the same course, it still is the same. It's still
When will
yours.
it be completed for the course?
I don't know that it will ever be completed.
Well,
Because it's
see,
dynamic.
That's my point, though. See,
Right.
what we have here is something that's copyrighted tonight, let's say, but it'll never be finished. So what are we really copyrighting?
It's everything in between start to finish is what you're referring to.
Has there ever been a time when based on your past experience, a school district has partnered with the copyright, making us partner with Mr. Reed as copyright ownership?
You mean, explain that again.
co-owners?
Co-owners?
Co-owners.
Right now, as I'm sitting here, not that I'm aware of that.
Is it possible?
I would have to double check. Anything's possible, but something we can look into if necessary.
Well, before I would vote on that, I would like to have an answer for that. I don't know if we should be tabling this until Mr. Pratt can do that further research and come back with that answer, but I just, I appreciate what Mr. Reed has been doing for us. Don't get me wrong, it's great. I looked at the curriculum for the Project Lead the Way all the way through here based on my experience and my past employment, and I think we're really doing a great job as far as that goes. I would very ready to keep that going in that direction. But we also have to remember that the taxpayers own this curriculum, right? He's doing it now, we're paying his salary, taxpayers pay his salary, so to basically just say that in the future, he's gonna take his salary, take the copyright, and maybe go somewhere else and sell it, what have you, on top of that, I don't know if everybody would approve that.
you're still reaping the benefit of it because the fact that anything that he makes, you maintain that.
Still stays
Still
here.
stays here, it doesn't go away.
And then we didn't have to go
Even if-
buy the.
I know he's not
curriculum.
charging
You don't have to
us.
buy it.
I'm not, you know he's not charging us, but he could be charging somebody else, correct?
Correct, but who here is gonna monetize our curriculum? I mean, who is gonna spend our resources here to go out and sell a program?
Would he be able to do that?
Yes, but not,
And if I'm understanding correctly, it's not the curriculum.
It's not the
He's
curriculum.
writing the curriculum, it's the
it's
content
the content
that he
within
is
it.
providing, or that he is, it's no different than if we were buying a book, or we were buying audiovisual or multimedia content from a content provider. The difference in this scenario is he's providing the content to us for free, but retaining the rights to maybe at a later point sell the content, not the curriculum. So the content is something that he's creating on his own time to utilize during instructional periods.
Are you doing that on your own time?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that this isn't like a textbook where, you know, you've got a copyright for edition 1, edition 2, edition 3, so on and so forth. This is actual class content designed to like, what is the Crash Course, right? Like that guy that talks really like, you know, manically as he's describing different science things. It's something similar to that, where it's used as a supplemental source of instruction, you know, in addition to books and tests and worksheets and such. I mean, personally, I think as someone that is creating content for our students, not trying to charge us at all, but just wants to maintain creative control of that, because that is something that a copyright gives as well. It prevents other people from diluting the product and diluting that artistic vision. I don't necessarily see an issue with that at all.
I think that's the benefit of having it be dynamic.
Correct.
Because if there's any updates that get made along the way, we reap the benefit, our students reap the benefit of that. Whereas if we say at the point in time, today moving forward, then it's static. And it doesn't change for the betterment of our students.
I hear you.
Now, if you do create another Khan Academy or Crash Course, I'd ask that you remember the little people, right? Donations would be acceptable.
And, in terms of the, you know, later in the agenda, there's a whole list of, curriculum writers, and curriculum documents that we're gonna be, asked to approve. So one final thought is just that, should we, move forward to approve this, that, we pulled the, union folks and that, Mr. Reed's peers support, this sort of exception to our standard process and rules, if you will. So I assume that that's occurred.
And not to speak out of turn, but Mr. Donato, the BHIA president, has been involved in all the conversations throughout the entire process.
I realize, of course, we are setting precedent if this goes through.
Do we have other educators that are creating curriculum?
Not to this sort of formalized agreement.
And I'm going to say this is outside the school.
Correct.
What are the consequences of setting precedent on this, Mr. Brown?
Just very vague, I'm trying to understand what you're asking.
Well,
me.
we do it now.
The consequences would be that you would show that you're, in my professional opinion, that you're showing your professional staff that they take the opportunity to use their own time to develop curriculum and to advance to the assistance of your staff, that you're there to support them in that regard, and that you're going to be the benefit of that work, and that they don't have to sit there and go somewhere else to get that support.
Because the key is after hours.
Yeah, the key. I mean, he's doing this after hours. It's not like he's doing this like on his prep time or anything like that. He's doing it after hours. You're encouraging your staff to, if they so desire, to be creative, and then to come to you and to help them be creative, and you reap the benefits of their creativity as well as their intelligence.
Mr. Pratt, also, I mean, we'd be establishing also a precedent that, you know, the person's not billing their school for that content, right? So it's kind of a win because it gives us access to, or pardon me, access, not accent. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having a TBI moment. But basically it gives us that thing to that content without, without having to have a financial burden, right? So that's the precedent that sets. Anybody that's doing that stuff for us, yeah, we're gonna let you have rights to it, but, we expect you, the quid pro quo is we're sharing, and we're sharing without faults.
And to Mrs. Hughes' part, the fact that you're approving curriculum, you paid your professional staff additional money to write curriculum down. You did not have to do that with this job.
Mr. Pottinger, is there anything in your contract that's similar to this that would affect you?
Not from a copyright perspective, no.
Any other perspective?
There is mention
Other employment?
about other employment as well as speaking engagements.
Sorry?
As well as speaking engagements.
So you are restricted?
Yes.
May I just clarify the interpretation there? Mr. Pottinger is not restricted to go out and get a speaking engagement and get paid $500 or $5,000 for that speech. The district has no ability to restrict that as long as he
It's
does it
currently
on.
restricted.
It is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not allowed to have a second employment opportunity.
Oh. I misspoke. I thought you were.
No, I can remember his original contract included that stipulation, I believe.
Oh, and it was edited out?
No. He is restricted.
Okay. I'm sorry. Misspoke.
In terms of copyright though, he essentially would have the same ability. Like, for example, I think this is a good example. When we created the evaluation tool on how we evaluate all of our teachers, I created that entire thing in Excel. If I wanted, I could have come to you and said, hey, I'd like to have ownership of that copyright material. I didn't. The district owns what I created. But I could have come to you and I could have asked for that. And similar with Mr. Pottinger, maybe there's something he would create. Any staff member could create and then come to the board and say, I would like ownership of this copyrighted material.
I think we're opening a can of worms, I don't know.
I think the level of work that's required for this and the level of dedication and, even artistic knowledge, right? Kind of precludes a lot of, not that our professional boys are fantastic, but like this is an extra step above what the average rank and file person would do in our district. And I think that's another part of the reason why it does need to be recognized, and the fact that we allow him to maintain ownership of this product. But I do recognize 100% your reservations. But I don't, again, and I'm a different person, so I'm sitting here, I don't really see the pitfalls being quite as severe as what it seems that you might be thinking.
Yeah, I don't know, Mr. Hefner, are you thinking in terms of pitfalls or are you thinking in terms of missed opportunity? Right, Mr. Wagman mentioned the word monetize, right? So for years now, we've been saying as a district, wouldn't it be great if we could find a way to generate revenue so that we don't have to pull so much revenue from our taxpayers?
That's part of it.
Is that where your head is at?
That's part of it. It's not all of it, but certainly that is an aspect of it, which if we were co-owners of a copyright issue, anytime it was sold for monetary gain, some of that would come back to the district, right? Am I right, Mr. Pratt?
Correct, but you'd also have to pay for the time and the energy and the effort to go out and try to sell it and to develop and continue to develop it. And
not if he sells it.
Well, I don't know if the gentleman would sell it for your benefit.
Well,
no,
Isn't that what Colonel did to Elvis?
Yeah.
So you're talking more about royalty rights
Yeah.
than partnership with a copyright, because
Well, yeah, I mean, a royalty is the monetary return on something which could be sold for monetary return, which is owned by a certain person and nobody else.
If I can just maybe hold up my contract,
Yeah.
There's two pieces in there. So there's a piece in there, change the subject. There's a piece in there that, any sale of curriculum, essentially, books, technology, that is prohibited. There's a piece in there about, doing.
Whose contract are we talking about here? Yours. Okay.
Consulting work, speaking engagements, those can occur with the approval of, with the, notice, advance notice of the board, and the amount of time it'll take from the absence of the school district.
So I was correct on that.
The
Okay,
speaking
thank you.
engagements, yeah.
Okay.
The curriculum, no, that's what my head was.
Yeah, yeah, okay, we were both right.
You are, yes. But I wanted to make sure that for the board's purpose. we understood.
I have no further questions.
I'm gonna move on to items 3 and 4 are kind of go hand in hand. These are to approve the Aruba switches from Integra One as part of the district's infrastructure upgrade. And then item 4 is to approve the purchase of Eaton UPS from CDW as part of the, again, the district's infrastructure upgrades. And I just kind of want to jump over to and note that these are outside the general fund technology budget. These go toward the capital projects, which is kind of its own separate account. And a lot of times we'll take year-end surplus funds to help pay for these projects. So kind of just wanted to note that. And hopefully we will get these done this year, assuming that everything arrives on time, if there's no delay in shipping, whatnot. If not, it'll be next year, early 2022-23 school year. So moving on to facilities.
Could I just interrupt there? I'm sorry.
Yep.
We're talking there about the Aruba switches, I believe, and the power supply. According to page 14 of the E-rate purchase agreement that we would have with the person there, there's a little chart up here, Mr. Pottinger. I don't know if you have it up there, you can see it.
Page 14 of which document, I'm sorry, of the Aruba?
It's the E-rate purchase agreement, business G4.
Okay. Page 14, okay.
Okay, you see that little box up there with some information in there, E-rate contract number 83849.
Mm-hmm.
This one?
Yes.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it says E-rate funding year 25. Is that the year 2025?
Yes.
What does that mean? Is that when we get the refund back?
No, the way that E-rate funding years work is their funding year spans, and since this is E-rate category 2, there's a year span of, I believe it's 4 or 5 years where they recycle. So they're just, the end of their cycle is what they're identifying
Okay,
there.
so this falls within that cycle.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I- Okay, then, we got all kinds of definitions down here. I'm not looking at all. At the very bottom here of the page there, in bold print, it says, in accordance with FCC requirements, the customer shall submit a completed and signed FCC, I'll get my teeth on there, signed FCC Form 486 to USAC, the Form 486 to be approved by USAC prior to order placement itself. Have we done that?
Yes, sir.
So we're gonna make the schedule for the end of the month if we do it.
Yes.
That's been approved and everything's okay with that?
Yes, it's a horrible process.
I thought so.
I strongly disdain every step along the way, but yeah, I appreciate the opportunity afforded to me on behalf of the board and Mr. Pottinger.
I'm damned that I had to read the whole damn thing before I could understand and ask these questions, so I hope everybody else took a chance and did the same thing. If you don't mind, I know it's in here. All right, so the numbers that we're seeing here, the final numbers, like 108,840 for the Aruba switches,
Yes.
and the UPS is 27,687.35. Is that the cost before E-rate?
Yes.
Or the cost after?
That is pre-E-rate dollars.
All right, so we're approving those in case something goes wrong here and it says,
By law, we have to go off of the pre-E-rate numbers.
Right, somewhere it says, no matter what, the customer further acknowledges and agrees that this shipment when executed constitutes a contract as required. And somewhere here, it says here, if it doesn't all come out from E-rate, if we don't get that E-rate, we assume all costs,
Correct.
right?
Yes, that's what it states.
Okay. So it's pre-E-rate dollars, and we will get the E-rate back how soon?
As long as everything processes on time, we're anticipating reimbursement within the fiscal year.
This year, this fiscal year?
Yes.
By June 1st or?
Yes, however, we have developed contingencies should we not receive the materials in this fiscal year, that we would apply it to the next.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, so moving on to item H, facilities and maintenance. Item 1 is to approve a 3-year lawn mowing services agreement with Hirsch's Landscaping out of Emmaus to provide lawn mowing services for the elementary, the intermediate middle school, and the high school as outlined. This would be a 16% increase from the final year of the current contracts. I would say, while it's 16%, if you look at the other numbers, they were almost double what we are currently paying. And with the price of gasoline right now and the increase in manpower costs to higher staffing, I would say people were relatively surprised it was only 16%. So just kind of pointing that out. Item I is to ratify an agreement with Sheehan Media to develop a district marketing and employment recruiting video for Business I. This is stemming from the recruiting retention initiative approved by the board. This 2-day on-site photo shoot or video shoot takes place February 16th and 17th. So the on-site portion is complete, and now it's kind of creating the video. And item J is to approve the updated roster of bus drivers provided by Brandywine Transportation for the current school year. So for those of you that were not here, at the beginning of the year before school starts, we'll approve a mass list of Brandywine Transportation employees. And obviously they've gone through the whole clearance process and everything is good to go. And then periodically throughout the year, if there's substantial changes, we'll reapprove that. So this is the updated list. That's all I have.
Any additional discussion, questions, comments?
Mr. Ryman, a couple of questions on the marketing video. So for $3,000, we're getting a 3-minute video that we intend to use for community and prospective employees. Can you just talk a little bit more about what your vision is in this regard?
Yeah, so our hope is to be able to push this out for future employment purposes and really shape up the culture of the school district. So we targeted 3 individuals from our school district, 2 individuals that are new employees, but both came from different backgrounds. And then the third one has been a long-time employee for the school district. And the idea is to share the story about who we are as a school district, the opportunities to be able to grow here, the reasons why, from a new employee perspective, why they came here, and the positivity that surrounds the culture within their current environment. So that is geared at the employment sector side of it. And then there's a lot of B-roll of all the curriculum initiatives that are happening within the school district. So we capitalized on that as well, packaged that together, and then are using that to target the communication relative to here's who we are as a school district. And so we want to push that out on more of the social media side and say, here's the phenomenal things that are happening, not just the employment target, but here's what the school district is all about.
Okay, so social media is one of the avenues for dissemination.
Yeah, school messenger, social media, website, we'll be pushing it out.
Okay, great. One of the things I noticed in the contract is that basically we're getting the video. Are we also getting the work product? So the photos, the clips, the scripts, do we own that? In other words, will that be handed off to us, or?
We do not.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried to negotiate that with it, but that is a separate cost for that B-roll or for other pictures.
Ooh, okay. So that if there's some great snapshots that we want to use in a marketing brochure to establish consistency, or elsewhere on our website to establish visual consistency, we're not able to?
We'd have to get permission and or even maybe pay for that.
Okay, so you tried, but.
I tried, yeah.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Make it roll call, please.
Mr. Wagnerman, I'd
Yes,
like to
sir.
have G2 separate, please, if you could.
All right, could I have the motion amended, Mr. Sheets?
Or some motion, so change.
Second. Alrighty, this is to vote on everything except for G2.
Mr. Hohenschel?
Yes.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
All right, could I get a motion and a second for item G2?
So moved. Sheets. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hume?
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer?
Yes.
Mr. Sheets?
Yes.
Mr. Stubitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart?
Yes.
Mr. Hefner?
Abstain.
Mr. Hohenschel?
I'm gonna abstain as well.
Only if it's going to be for conflict of interest.
7 yeas, 2 abstentions, motion passes. That's right.
I mean, yes. Sorry. I've been missed before.
Sorry.
Superintendent's report, can I get a motion in a second?
So moved.
There you
There
go.
we
Ken.
go.
Boom.
A second? All right.
All right, so superintendent report, the curriculum was presented last meeting, just as a final summary. And process-wise, the curriculum is presented to the board. We asked for any public comment. We asked for comment from the board, any comment from staff. And then we bring it back to the board next meeting for a second reading and final approval. So after this evening, this will be the curriculum for next year. Just holistically, again, 6-year curriculum cycle. So this year in this curriculum package that's in front of you is obviously more the fine arts. You have art, music, and consumer science, guidance, project leadership, this sort of thing. So that's the overarching process in terms of curriculum and what's presented in front of the board this evening for the second reading. Just like to take a moment and thank the staff that did work and write this curriculum. There's a lot of effort to do that. And then specifically Mrs. Kircher, who led that conversation process in conjunction with Mrs. Werman, working directly with those teachers to focus in on what our priorities are as a school district, focus in on the standards, and then really dissect and put together the curriculum that's in front of you. This, I can say, is one of the better products, best products that we've had, just because there's so much more oversight and partnerships in terms of developing the curriculum process. So kudos to the folks that were involved in developing this. Any questions specifically related to the curriculum?
Quick comment, I just want to echo the thanks. I know that it's a tremendous amount of hard work and extra time and energy, so thank you for those teams of people and Mrs. Kirchner for your leadership and Mr. Wolfer for yours as well. Is there, there's 7 departments worth of curriculum here. Is there a summary document that exists for each one of these that would help us understand what's being pulled out and what's being added?
At this point, I don't believe we just present the curriculum as a whole. Is that correct, Mr. Volker?
Yes, and I mean, Mrs. Kircher, feel free to, jump in, but no, there are a lot of minor changes. It does become a little bit tricky to keep track of all the changes, but I think from the high level, would you say, what are the significant changes?
The big significant changes in the art department, specifically with the restructuring of those programs to ensure that they are keeping up with all the standards and all of the up-to-date like graphics design and things that go along with and feed into like some of the computer science programming pieces. So they try to ensure that there is that connection and afford students the opportunity to grow in those different areas.
I appreciate that. I would ask if, the administration would consider moving forward, not retroactively perhaps, but moving forward, that as curriculum is revised, that I'm not looking for typos, like, oh, we changed the to an up. I'm talking about major structural changes, as you just mentioned. So you articulated like a new vision, if you will, or an enhanced vision with a rationale behind it. That could be articulated in 2 sentences in a summary document, right? If, for example, a book is being replaced, this title is out, this title is in a literature course, with a sentence explaining what the rationale of the team that authorized that, what their thinking was, why we replaced this particular material with one that's more current, or one that's more diverse, or one that's more whatever the objective was. I would request that high-level summary information be provided to us at the same time as the revised curriculum. In fairness, without that, it's really hard for me as a board member, I don't know how my peers feel, but for me as a board member to really understand what I'm being asked to sign off on and what the key differences are. So.
Mr. Pottinger, could I propose, traditionally what we would do is at the first reading, we would do just a high-level overview presentation of what those changes are.
Yes.
I admittedly don't know why we didn't last time. I think it was just due to the.
We can put something together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that we've done that in the past in presentations.
Yeah.
We've done that with program studies every year. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So moving forward, that's fine.
Yeah.
Not an issue.
Yeah.
Mr. Hampton, just, you asked what Mr. Kircher was explaining. She said that the major change happened within the art department.
Okay.
And the shift to what the new standards are and more aligned with what the new vision of where we're headed with the art department is.
Okay, yeah, I find it very difficult to hear from that distance with the fan going in my ear.
Yeah. Next month, the AV is supposed to be set up.
Okay.
We'll get there.
I just like to add a comment here about the item D, which is the Project Lead the Way Engineering Education. I looked at that very closely and compared it to what my knowledge was required to do in my profession while I was working. And I want to tell you what, these kids go through that course there and get that under their belt and take it stretch a little bit further to other things like automated design and what have you. They'll be able to get a job real quick, at a nice pay scale.
The really neat thing with that curriculum is there's a capstone project at the very end of it, and then they invite city professionals in the engineering field to come in and critique their projects, and it's a pretty intense.
I would say that there's a lot of places right here in Berks County where there's a need for that. So, good job.
Thank you for that comment. Item H is for consideration for myself to attend the Pennsylvania Rural and Small Schools Conference. That is held up annually at State College. The cost for the conference would be $250 and then plus the hotel accommodation. So that is on May 5th and 6th. Just a reminder, as part of my contract, any conferences would need to be board approved. And just as a kind of side note, I was intended to go to a conference in the fall. Wasn't able to do that due to COVID. And then I was hoping to be able to go to one this spring, which I informed the board about. It was a quick turnaround. They changed the date to that to May, and so I won't be able to attend that either. So those other two that were kind of lingering out there did not occur, but I just wanted to kind of close the loop on that, just so people were aware. And then finally, we have the approval of the guidance plan. So the state requires us to do several iterations of different types of plans. There's a comprehensive plan, that gets approved every 6 years, and that's a really big process. And then there's a 3-year check-in in between there. There's a special education plan that gets approved every 3 years. And then there's a guidance plan that's individual and that has to get approved every 5 years. And so this one's kind of off cycle. And so we ask for your consideration for the guidance counseling plan that would be submitted to the state as part of the school code. That is it on the superintendent report. Any questions?
Any additional discussion, comments? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mr. Reitauer,
Yes.
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stewitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
We're moving on, personnel report. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
There you go.
Boom. There you go.
A motion in a second.
All right, fairly small personnel report this evening. There's no resignations, terminations, and retirements. We do have a change of assignment for Mrs. Kathy Conrad, and huge kudos and compliments to Mrs. Conrad. She has served in multiple roles as a long-term sub for us, from special education to art to gifted to most recently physics. We were lucky enough to be able to find a physics teacher, and so Mrs. Conrad is now going to take over the role of intervention specialist that's been vacant this year because of staff shortages, and this enables us to be able to shift her role and help us out, helping our students out a little bit further. Appointments, we have the appointment of Mr. Moyer. He's going to be filling in for a sabbatical in the physical education world from March 14th until the end of the school year. We also have the appointments for co-curricular for spring sports, as well as the spring sports event and volunteer coach list that's included as 4B. And then finally, we have an adjustment to the salary and contract for Ms. Del Huerco as our business manager, which would take effect as of this evening. Any questions under personnel?
So quick question under C4A. So the co-curricular appointment, I just couldn't find anything that changed on the document, so I'm not quite sure what we're approving. Usually it's something bolded, and the only bolded items I saw were TBD. So would you be willing just to help us?
I don't believe there are any changes from the last board meeting that you approved in February.
Okay, so we don't really need that item then.
My apologies for that.
Okay, thank you.
What's happening?
I can give an update now.
Sure.
Mr. Moyer, who's just been approved to be the long-term sub, has also agreed to be the JV baseball coach as well. So that'll be updated as well for next.
What was said, Mr. Hefner, is we actually approved the items under C, or 4A from February. There was no additional changes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can I just say something real quick? For one, I just want to say thank you to everybody. It's been a pleasure coming on board and not staying at Brandywine. I would just say since day one, I've had the opportunity to kind of contribute with all my colleagues here. They asked for my input since day one. It's kind of been that collaborative approach, and I really enjoy that while continuously learning about the district itself, and kind of growing under your leadership, and kind of alongside my colleagues down this route. And I just want to say thank you for recognizing my contributions with this board agenda item. I look forward to continuing to work together, and I'm just appreciative of the opportunity. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for all your work. I really appreciate it.
All right, hearing no other comments, will I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Sheets,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Wallheiser,
Yes.
Mrs. Eisenhart,
Yes.
Mr. Hefner,
Yes.
Mr. Hohenschel,
Yes.
Mrs. Hume,
Yes.
Mr. Reitauer,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
9 yeas, motion passes.
Any other public comment or discussion?
I would like to just make one comment, so that way I can complete my job correctly. The JOC meeting will be held on March 23rd.
I was waiting for you to say something, but I didn't want to interrupt. them.
Sorry.
Your report.
I found it,
That's
sorry.
above the fold.
And before adjournment, I do have to make an announcement that on February 14th, we did have an executive session to discuss personnel issues.
I got two questions.
Yes, sir.
Question number one, I probably should have brought this up earlier, about the Topton bus. If the number raises next school year, what would be our plan of action?
So if it would raise to the point of requiring us to.
Do you know what the number is?
18?
What, yeah, but what would cause us to have to provide another bus, or if it would cost us something?
I don't know the answer to that because every year is dynamic. With move-ins, with graduating students, with kindergartners, and so all that is in flux and changes on a routine basis. So we'd have to look and see if there is capacity to be able to, let's just say 100 kids decide to do it next year. Would we be able to manage that, and would we have to be able to assign then between the stops so that we knew these individuals would have enough capacity within the bus to be able to pick them up? Would we have to do double stops with double buses? There's a bunch of different scenarios there that we have to investigate. Our goal would be to, this is obviously something we want to continue and pursue. So if it would be an issue next year, we'd have to talk about it before, talk about what the cost would be for a van or a bus to be able to.
Question number two, I don't know if we talked about this here or at the budget meeting, the next one. I know Nicole proposed to do an app for 2,400 tractor buses, put a GPS on it, and then we can notify the people on the app when we pick up your students and when we drop off the students. Is there any word on that, or is that for the next budget meeting?
So that was a discussion as part of the budget process. And so the goal would be is if that would be implemented, that would not be implemented until next year. It's the conversations are budget related for next fiscal year, which would be July 1.
Did we agree on that yet?
So when we talked about it at the board meeting as part of the budget, what happens is as those things are presented, we present the things that are incorporated as part of the budget currently. And so if there's strong opposition to something, then we would pull it out, or if the recommendation from the administration would be, let's pull it out because we need to find ways to close that budget gap, then we would pull these select items out. So otherwise, unless there's strong opposition or something is recommended to be removed for the budget for cost saving measures, those items would be continued as part of that budget process. And then subsequently, when you approve the budget in June, would then be able to be initiated.
And I think that was relatively low hanging fruit at $2,400. Not like big time, like, oh, $24 is nothing. But when you compare it to a lot of other things that are out in the budget, it is relatively inexpensive. If I remember correctly, the main concern really was, security related. Making sure that people that aren't supposed to have access to that don't get access to that, because we don't want to end up with like a custody situation where somebody absconds with a child. I know that Nicole and Paige were actually going to work on trying to find some of that information for us, and we're going to loop back around that budget meeting for that.
Actually, we provided an update, weekly update.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there we go. We got the information, so we're good to go. But like I said, it's relatively low hanging fruit. I don't believe that's going to be something that,
Yeah, I'm
judging
definitely in
on-
agreement with that. I just wanted to make sure we are doing it, we're going towards that, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just ask that it become a discussion topic. So yes, the information was provided in the weekly update, but this group didn't discuss those answers. So I would just ask for the opportunity for this group in a forum, which would be the next budget meeting, to discuss the incremental information we received and drive forward towards your question, which is what's the status update?
I believe that's 628.
Correct.
So we'll be discussing that on.
Yeah, kind of in reference to the bus stops, you will see a word policy coming through, because right now we have communal bus stops listed, that we actually do not utilize, so you'll see, we'll kind of remove the exact communal bus stops out of the board policy, so you'll see that come through in the next board meeting, for a first reading and a second reading. I would say right now we have 4 communal bus stops, and then 3 for the intermediate elementary school. I would think rather than eliminating the whole thing, say if we have this influx of kids that want to utilize the service, we might have to shift where the stops are and offer more stops. So that might impact you, might not impact you, as where your bus stop would be. But we basically have to find, common areas where the buses that do have room, can accommodate more kids. So that's kind of where I see that happening before we say, oh, we can't offer it. So that's just kind of where I see that going.
Thank you. All right, ready to adjourn? Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the 28th?
28th budget meeting, yes.